Hey, this is Vu, and I'm going to take a look at some of the teams that made it into the major play-ins. And this is going to be INTZ versus Dream Eaters. This is map 2, probably the more interesting of the maps they play if you know the outcome, as it's a ridiculous game. Anyways, we've got a standard Palace pop here, which actually should work incredibly well against Dream Eater's setup, but Kinky's just going to pull something off. The nade is well-timed, gets yell low, and then he just lands the shots. Now, the goal that he has here is the standard kind of goal when you play CT solo. You fall back and you look at the players rotating through CT. Their goal is to support when the terrorists push. By playing one there, you're kind of baiting them to push in to try and take CT spawn. And you play and you support it with 3. And now INTZ is going to try and contest with 2 players towards CT. And they have every chance to actually win that gunfight, but they just don't win it because they're 2v3. And it leaves Destiny alone, and Forrester's going to win the round. But Dream Eaters almost kind of threw that one, actually, because they had the perfect play. Kinky got the double entry. However, one of those players, I believe it was Speedak, ran through the smoke trying to take down the bomb planter. They didn't need to do anything like that. It was 5v3. They had a kit. They had every ability to make that retake happen, and suiciding into Sandwich actually took off a lot of pressure from them and gave them a really good chance to actually win. So nearly kind of threw that round away, but ended up winning it. Kinky getting the double entry is really big, and INTZ like trying to contest. And actually, into this one, you can see this play from Destiny. This is actually kind of like the Na'Vi play. They like to do this sometimes where they put one gun on a player. I think Furia does this as well, where they're going to be able to buy up next round if you look at the money, but they're giving themselves a reasonable chance. And especially with the way that SMGs are pretty common recently, a lot of teams are just SMGing up. If you get this type of buy, you can definitely find some openings with the Krieg in hand. And you know, if you run into the 3 SMGs on the side of Dream Eaters, they are essentially free kills, especially on angles where you can force long-range engagements. So that's exactly what Destiny's plan here is. Obviously running out top mid with the Krieg. His teammates are looking for something, but they're not playing overly aggressive. They're kind of waiting for pushes because they don't want to give up the round. They want to let Destiny be the one that dictates the round here. And Dream Eaters actually, Crad here found a ridiculous timing. I think actually heard them run away from ramp. I think it was a misplay that they ran away from ramp. And so he's got this flank off. And you'll notice here that Speedak is not peeking Cat. That's because for all Dream Eaters knows, they could actually be heading up connector, and if Speedak dies, or if he gets spotted and trapped, he could easily die. And that's why Kinky's making sure, you know, if they are heavily in middle, they can't go through window, but he's close on the rotate. And the flank and the player boosted inside are actually what's going to win them this round here. So Speedak, you know, he could have gotten some information for his team, but it was much safer for him to stay in that corner and try and survive and make sure, you know, they know all 5 players are on the mid side. There's no reason for him to get over eager. Now, he could have gone somewhere else. He could have played like a ramp or something, but he wanted to get early information because if he plays too far back, they'll be almost in sight before he even sees them. It's a little bit more dangerous to play that angle, but you can't generally expect 5 players to be alive and they're all in middle, walking in middle when you've already had someone spotted a little bit. It's safer to assume they're, you know, guess that they're probably going B. And now INTZ, because of that last round, Destiny's going to be on the Mac 10, but they're still going to be able to buy up. And the speed, they're not actually, you see them run through the smoke in middle. They're not actually expecting anyone to have an op, most likely, because generally on 3rd round, you know, sometimes teams have ops. A lot of the time, they don't. So you can play a little bit extra aggressive, kind of hoping they don't have an op. Now, they know Speedak is in ladder because he shot, and Sviat, there's the smoke there allowing him to get into ladder as well to support his teammate, maybe kind of catch them off guard. But you're going to notice the play here from Kinky. It's very aggressive. He realizes, though, that he has no support. Like, look at this. The player in connector, or window, is smoked off. 2 players on Cat. That's why he went hyper-aggressive there from CT. Instead of trying to survive from CT there, he tried to make that play and make sure that they weren't just going to get the free bomb plant and try and catch them off guard. And he actually did catch them off guard in connector, but he just wasn't able to land the shots quite quickly enough. And now into the 2v2, KNG just kind of caught off guard there, and you're going to notice that Molly comes out, but the smoke is mistimed because the Molly is supposed to push Yell out. However, because the smoke is there, all it does is push him into the smoke. And now with him in the smoke, Zan doesn't even need to find that kill. I mean, The round is already over. Yell makes a smart play walking into the smoke, but really it's a bit of a misplay to molly and immediately smoke. What they wanted to do there was molly, wait a few seconds, and then smoke, and it would have allowed the guy to get pushed out, but not just hide in the smoke that they threw there, because as soon as he's in that smoke, the round's already essentially over, right? So now Dream Eater's going to go for a bit of a force buy here. You try and keep the opponent's economy a little bit low, right? They don't want to let them kind of build an economy because that's how you start to get destroyed, especially on maps that are fairly even. So they're going for the reforce right back into it, and INTZ is actually going to make their way quickly towards B, and this should be a round they win, but the play works perfectly. Sviat with the flash there gives Forrester a little bit to work with this ump, and he finds a kill and one more, but you'll notice that Sviat in sight here, he smokes himself off, and then he survives. And this is actually a great play from him because it allows for time, and look where the players from INTZ are. This is exactly why staying solo alive is so important. You know, Sviat behind the site, it doesn't seem like much because he doesn't even get a kill in this round, but he really enables the entirety of this round to actually work out for INTZ. The flash to support that allowed Forrester to not only get one kill, but also get a ton of damage done. And then smoking himself off and surviving, and his teammates are able to rotate in. And just by nature of being alive there, he forces INTZ to play super scared, really far back, and not really run out, because they want at least one guy supporting, and then with 3 players alive, they're really in a bad spot there, so not much they can really do just because he survives. If he fights and gets one kill, they're in a much worse spot than him not fighting and not getting any kills. So this forces them back onto the pistols here, and you can see Dream Eaters, this is like pretty much the safest way you can play on an anti-eco. You play Ticket and Tri-Stack. Tri-Stack won't get blind if they want to do a Palace Pop, so we can turn and easily deal with it. And, you know, by being there for the Palace Pop, it gives Speedak a little bit of space, because a Palace Pop can actually completely obliterate your Opper at Ticket if he's not, you know, supported in any way, which really changes the way this looks. So this player is able to support towards connector, can also support if they go out ramp, and he's not going to get blind again if they come out for a Palace Pop. So this is like the safest way to play against an eco when you know an eco's coming out for sure. You can do this on round 2 with FAMASs as well. It's not perfect because you know, sometimes you can lose them anyways. And now, but it works really well if they try and go A. But Forrester here, he's completely alone on B, and he's still going to go aggressive, which is... It's risky, we'll put it that way. It's very risky, but it's one of those plays that you see a lot of more aggressive teams make, because it does kind of get into the minds of your opponents, and it could backfire, but the times when it backfires are not super duper common, and what it does is it gets the idea into your opponent's heads that you could be going heavily aggressive, and they're going to be more worried than they would be otherwise. You know, if they're not playing B, they're thinking, well, he already started to push once. You know, it kind of gets into the back of their minds, and it's probably not a play you see, you know, Astralis or like North or something make, teams that try and play more fundamentally correct. However, it is a play that a lot of good teams will make. It's just kind of high risk for a little bit of a payoff later on in the half. So it takes a lot of confidence, and there are ways it can go wrong, but it does play into the mentality of your opponents, and I'm certain it will play into the mentality of INTZ, at least to some degree, knowing that he's willing to push that aggressively. And now, INTZ is going to go for a default here, and you got the smoke, the Astralis smoke coming out of Dream Eaters, and INTZ isn't going to try and pressure through that. Some teams will try and pressure through that, but they do the standard boost over. What's interesting here is that they're doubling A. This is the default that's kind of moved into favor a lot more recently, because it used to be more of a like 1B, 3 mid, 1A setup. If you look back in, you know, 2017, 2016, especially beforehand, teams were playing 1A on the T side. However, because CTs were responding and playing 1A themselves, the double A started to come out from T sides, because you can work out from both angles, and if there's only one A player on CT side, there's almost no way for him to prevent just getting picked off. At the very worst, they get a trade there. So now CT teams are responding by doubling up as well. So there's kind of a metagame shift there. And you saw they did damage to both of the players. They were actually in perfect positions to get 2 kills there. But luck of the draw, or luck of the aim, I guess, they didn't find either into the 3v5. And this is unfortunate for them because they had the right angles. They just weren't able to land the shots here. And you can see this boost actually crad. I love this boost because he's lit. He's got 27 health. It almost guarantees a kill if they try and plant default or they do any kind of weird play. And you'll notice that actually Dream Eaters wasn't doing anything aggressive, but as soon as they heard the bomb plants, Fiat looked around a little bit, and the players boosted at CT there also looked around. So part of that is they know that the bomb is starting to get planted, so they know one player is down for the count. Like, they really can't do anything for a few seconds. And so that's when they start to make a little bit of information plays and try and, position themselves well and figure things out, not beforehand. So they make sure they're playing the 5v2, not the 5v3, which works out perfectly for them. Then you see INTZ call a timeout, which is pretty natural at this point. 3K in the bank, they're still going to have to save. Sometimes you expect teams to play kind of passive and, just work this type of thing out during the save, but they probably want to get input from the coach, so it makes perfect sense. And on the CT side, you've got Krad and Speedak both opping. So this is kind of what they do. Speedak, generally, they're opper. Krad, op in hand as well, playing it towards window. Well, Speedak is the player I've seen most opping on this map specifically. And Krad towards window, but they're actually both peeking, so it kind of throws your opponents off a little bit if they get the op and connector. Then through the smoke, and it's going to be kinky. You'll notice he was playing towards CT, but a little bit forward, and as soon as his teammate got flashed, he instantly moved over to support. So that's a situation where, he misses one extra bullet there, his teammate's dead, but I love the confidence to move out and support his teammate there as soon as anything went wrong. That's something you're never going to see in matchmaking, You're never going to see that type of coordination, but having that in a team environment is incredibly important and makes a big difference, because otherwise they're into the 5v4, and if he stays CT, he probably doesn't want to peek out towards Con in the 5v4, which means they have one CT and one jungle. Jungle guy can get isolated, and all of a sudden the round can completely turn on its head just without him making that singular play. So INTZ is onto the buy up again, and they're really not pressuring middle at all. And this gives a lot of space over to Dream Eaters because INTZ isn't pressuring middle early at all. Whenever the Astralis smoke comes down, they're able to do crazy shit like Fiat is doing here, just dropping into underpass. They're able to double up A consistently and do plenty of stuff. And Yell actually spots him out there, but this is kind of a very non-Brazil-esque play where he spots him out with like a super safe peek and doesn't peek afterwards. It's not that it's a bad play. He might be expecting an opper to be peeking down into underpass, especially because they know that Dream Eaters are playing a double op setup. You might be expecting that type of thing, but it's usually like, you usually feel it's more Brazilian, like a more Brazilian aggressive play to recontest and know that you have an advantage, especially when you're down 6-1, to just force that advantage and go from there instead of playing out the round in a more standard manner. And again, because it's 6-1, they're not really winning these rounds very well. You would expect a more aggressive play to try and catch them off and try and give themselves an advantage. I think it shows a little bit of lack of confidence to not go for that from a team that, you might generally expect this team to do something like that more often. And Speedak here is actually trapped. This is actually a terrible spot to be stuck in. You need to land all of your shots if you're stuck here. But he does land the first shot, and they run back. This is just... this is so indecisive. And they just throw the round completely here. I mean, they run out Cat. They start to run back. They get the frag. I think they also start to realize that there's only 20 seconds left. They might have been considering saving, but it actually looked pretty clearly like they were heading back A. If they were saving, it makes a little bit more sense to run back again after that frag. But it really doesn't, because by getting that kill, they should know a rotate's there already. There's no situation where a rotate isn't there. So that's just like a huge misplay. I understand if they were saving and then they decide to maybe try to go for it after getting that kill, like they think it would be a good idea. However, they should realize that was a terrible idea. They're really almost never winning that round with 20 seconds left. So I don't know what was going on there. They might have just not noticed the time, considered going back A and then gone back B again. or they might have been looking to save and then they got the kill and redecided. But either way, they're almost never winning that round in that situation. And the fact that they even got 3 kills, 2 of them obviously on exit, so it was a 4v1 there, I believe, is just a miracle. Even keeping the economy a little bit down of Dream Eaters is just lucky. And now they're entering the kind of situation where they can essentially buy up every round. However, when you start to buy up every round, you get into the situation where you don't ever really have full utility. And so you're going to see a lot of teams that don't, a lot of teams do it, but I think it's probably more common for teams to not do that anymore, because you're looking for full utility to actually make a round count. When you start buying up without utility, it kind of shows a kind of like being lost in terms of options, because you're looking for your team to out aim. And now INTZ is going to make their way out B with pistols mostly, and Forrester's not going to get checked. So he's in the perfect spot here. He finds one, but he doesn't find the second. And this is how quickly a round can change off of 1 kill, because KNG is going to get another frag, turn it into a 2v4, and they're going to end up saving. However, if you think about it for a second, imagine Forrester grabs that kill, right? And then he grabs the second kill, and he stays in apartments. All he needs to do there is stay alive. It would be a 4v3 for Dream Eaters before KNG got the kill, but let's say KNG gets that kill and it's a 3v3. You're constantly making INTZ paranoid, and that's just a perfect example of a situation, if he was alive there, where just having a person, like the threat of a person being there, is what makes the difference. Forrester actually making a play out of apartments can find a frag, but if he had gotten in there and survived, it would have been more about the threat of him playing or making a play, or the threat of him doing something crazy, than the actuality of him doing it, that would have caused INTZ to be in a very uncomfortable spot there. So unfortunately, he couldn't find that, because that's 9 HP from a very, I wouldn't say likely, but I mean, it's pretty likely. Like, it's a very potential round win, right? But that's the difference, millimeters make in CS, right? Now, KNG's got the spawn, down 7-2. Of course, when you're down 7-2, you're thinking about taking that spawn. And what I want to highlight is Speedak here. KNG misses the couple of shots, which is unfortunate for him, but Speedak instantly recontests. Like, that's a level of confidence you don't always see, because a lot of the time you can just back up there safely. You don't need to recontest that, but he does it anyways, and that's just confidence, probably from the fact that they're already winning the rounds, And he ends up falling back, and now you've got Krad close ramp, but as soon as he realizes someone is close ramp with him, he starts to back off a little bit. He doesn't want to full contest it. And Zan's actually going to make his way out and kill him under balcony. Now Kinky, he's going to make the play again. This is similar to his play on round 4 or 3, I believe. Getting out to triple, and he's just going to catch them off guard with the first 2 kills, and now he's going to wait for a flash. This flash is going to pop, and he's immediately going to come out. So what he's trying not to do there is he doesn't want to wait too long, because he realizes that a nade could come out and push him out of the spot, which is exactly what happened after he died. But I love the play there, because he doesn't ask for the flash first, right? He asks for the flash second. He catches the first players off guard. He catches them in the open where they're not expecting it. They're not expecting, they got the 1 kill on the guy A. They might be expecting a solo A player. They're not really expecting a player to push out CT from tri-stack. Or, if they're expecting a second player, they're expecting him to jump over the CT smoke, boost over it onto tick and go for the frag. The player triple is a huge surprise, can find the 1 kill for free, and then you wait, and then you get a flash back, and you find the second kill as well, right? Catching that first kill based off of surprise makes a big difference to the way he's able to play that, and that's just a smart play, realizing that they're down a member. I guess they're not super confident playing the full retake, because there's nothing wrong with playing a full retake, but if they're not confident with it, then that play makes perfect sense, and it puts Dream Eaters in a great spot to win that round. That's exactly what they do. They just close it out pretty easily. So great play there from Kinky for the play, and for landing the shots as well. He landed a few nice shots there. You can't diminish how important those shots were to land as well. Now, of course, you've got another buyout from both teams, and the economy isn't looking super amazing here from Dream Eaters, given that they're up 8-2, but it's certainly not bad. INTZ hasn't, you know, let them win too many rounds with a lot of players alive. And this is INTZ basically changing up the formula. This is kind of the Furia play. Going fast through underpass to boost into window. But Speedak just reads it perfectly, finds the kill. But it still actually works out because Shello comes through and finds a kill. Kanji finds another. So that's just kind of a change of speed play. It's the type of play you make a lot of the time when you're dominating or when you're running out of options or you're running out of ideas. And I think obviously for Dream Eaters or for INTZ here, it's the second. They're running out of ideas to some extent. And it works out actually perfectly because Speedak finding that frag actually gives him a false sense of security. He thinks that he stopped the boost. He thinks they were rushing for a boost potentially, and he stopped it. But in reality, they were rushing for a boost with 3 players, and I think gives him a false sense of security there. But you can see how little control INTZ is really getting of mid early on, which wastes a lot of their time before they really start getting control and ability to split areas, and it makes it a little bit awkward the way they can play these rounds out. And this is a play I'm surprised to see against the buy-up we have from Dream Eaters. I'm thinking INTZ must not be expecting this low of a buy-up, because generally in this type of situation, when you have a somewhat low buy-up, you're trying to play a little bit further back. You're trying to force your opponents to need to use their utility, which they won't, you know, often have, and Dream Eaters here didn't have a ton of utility. You want to force them to get in situations where they would want to use that utility. So you do things like executes, you do like slow mid control. You get your opponents to get antsy, especially trying to push because they have light buys, they have SMGs, stuff like that, and put them in uncomfortable spots. But instead, they get really aggressive, not only at mid, but out a ramp. And that's exactly what Dream Eaters wants. You know, they've got weapons, but not much utility. And because of that, they're able to win the gunfights where, you know, they would have a lot more trouble if INTZ was with SMGs. And here's Fiat got spotted out, actually. So he's kind of baiting for his teammate here a little bit. Then Kinky's going to peek, and Fiat's going to peek out as well. He's basically trying to make sure that the player coming out of Palace, if there is one, can't kill his teammate freely. And that's the perfect play. Fiat knows that, like, peeking out before that is really dangerous. He could just get his head taken off pretty easily. But peeking out after his teammate already made contact works perfectly as an idea. Because they're not going to be focusing on CT anymore. They're going to be focusing on Firebox, and he's not the likely target of bullets. And he finds a kill off of that as well. So pretty good teamwork working out here for Dream Eaters in general, giving them a really good chance into a lot of these rounds. And INTZ playing a little bit odd. They're playing kind of scared, to be honest. In a lot of these situations, they're playing different than you would expect them to normally play. Especially that play on Catwalk, and now double opping. I feel like double opping is another... It's a little bit of a desperation play for most teams. It's basically, you know, sometimes there's strategies around it, and I think INTZ has a reasonable idea of what they want to do here, but usually you're not expecting a double op when things are going well, right? You're expecting a double op when you're trying to kind of throw shit against the wall and figure out what sticks. And that's the situation for INTZ here. They're going to send one op B and try and... They realize that Dream Eaters is playing solo B a lot, and he's jump spotting a decent amount as well. So they're trying to catch him off guard here at B. However, you know, there's not much to do if he doesn't find the frag. And he's not going to find the frag. He's going to give away the idea that he has an op. So you're going to have Forrester play a lot more passive, and he didn't find anything off of it. And now what do? You know, without finding that, especially with no mid control, what do you do here? It's such an awkward spot to be in, and the reality is they just have to look for a frag. Like, they really just have to look for something. And Kanji misses the shot. Missing that shot is actually killer, because it forces his teammates to look towards Sandwich where they would otherwise be looking at under balcony. And as soon as he looks at Sandwich, the guy under balcony kills him. So if Kanji finds that frag, they probably win this round. It's just unfortunate. It happens. It happens. So it puts into a 3v4 here. INTZ might be considering saving already. Because they have 2 ops, they might be considering saving unless they can find entries. Would not surprise me. But Sviat aggressively flanks through underpass. That's actually nuts. Basically trying to clear out that part of the map. You know, it's aggressive, it's pretty risky, but he's trying to clear out part of the map, make sure nobody's lurking, which makes perfect sense. And it puts Cello and KNG into the 2v4, and Cello should never have been able to find that kill. KNG shouldn't have been able to find that kill either. Somehow this one's all of a sudden possible here for INTZ. And not only that, but you have 2 ops for Dream Eaters, which means they're not able to, you know, capitalize on Cello having 2 HP. But that is what the Molotov they previously threw was supposed to do, by the way. And now KNG trapped under balcony. KNG... So, first of all, that molly, that's exactly what the molly where they smoked it off, it was supposed to do. It pushed him completely out. He only had 2 HP, so he didn't have any... He could have potentially survived hiding behind the boxes, but he didn't want to take the risk because he only had 2 HP. 1 tick would have killed him, right? So he just ran out, and that's exactly what they didn't have happen when they smoked off the bomb. And then KNG was trapped under balcony there, and it's not a terrible spot because if you find the first frag, you can kind of play around with the second player using the ladder and doing kind of weird stuff. It makes it kind of hard for that second player to do too much. But if you missed the first shot, and it wasn't that he whiffed it, it was actually just a really smart jiggle peek from the side of Dream Eaters that allowed that to happen. And that's on Dream Eaters more than INTZ. And now Forrester are going to do something similar. This time there's more flashes, and so Sviat is going to do something similar as well. So he flashes for Forrester. Forrester finds the kill, and this is... this is something. So what's weird here is, you know, they got caught off by those flashes, and they completely stopped, which generally isn't what you want to see if you're rushing B, but they just decided to completely stop when those flashes came out. And then once they realized that they couldn't get the kill on the guy back site, they killed the guy close, but there was a second guy back site, they lost all confidence and just ran away. And, you know, probably you're not winning the round if you force it in this type of situation. However, you're also almost definitely not winning the round if you do this. I mean, the percentage chance to victory here should be incredibly low. 4v3, moving back when you previously had no map control. I mean, for all INTZ knows, Kinky could be pushed up through into T-spawn right now. And then on the other hand, Dream Eaters, this is like supreme confidence right now. Speedak playing next to a smoke, waiting for people with an op in his hand, and he's going to be able to find the first one and the second one. So apparently, confidence for a reason, right? Yell alone, and now really he just wants to die, actually. He just wants to die. This is kind of an underrated concept, but when you have, you know, pistol, no armor, and you're going to be making 3,400 next round, right? You actually don't want to save that AK because your entire utility and gun buy-up at that point is less than 3,400. And you also risk the chance of dying after time. So him there, he's just trying to die. He does die, and now... KNG, this is really another situation where they're just kind of, it feels like they're out of ideas because KNG doesn't even have the best spawn and he still goes for the mid peak. That's like, nothing's working. Let me just go for this peak. I'm just going to go for this peak, right? And it's super YOLO. And the way they walk out Palace is just the same. I mean, this is all the hallmarks of a team that really has nothing in the bank. No, they have nothing ideas of how to win a round, and they're just doing whatever anybody feels like doing, and just trying to catch Dream Eaters off guard. They're not trying to formulate a solid T-side half. You know, obviously on the last round, you're not really trying to formulate a solid T-side, but at the same time, you know, usually you expect people to be running strats, right? But in this case, they're just trying, they're trying to run strats, obviously. It's not like they're just trolling. However, they are running plays that have a lot of individual effect. Kanji going for the window peek when he didn't even have the spawn for it. It's basically saying, you know, I don't think we can win if we play a straight up 5v5, so let's try and catch them off guard, do something weird. And now on inside, you have a double nade. This is not something you actually ever see. And Zand keeping the CZ as well. This is not also something you see that often. Keeping the CZ on pistol when you buy it. But it's an interesting play. And this is actually an incredibly clever pistol round here from Dream Eaters. So what they did is they baited, right? They baited, they made noise, and they're trying to bait ints to potentially push up middle or push A. And they're looks like they're going to move back here, which is incredibly clever. Because basically they're baiting Destiny to be in the spot, and maybe I would guess that there's some read that they have on ints as a team to know that Destiny would be pushing here, or that they'd be pushing middle, but they seem so certain Destiny will be pushing here, and they just catch them off guard. I feel like that's definitely a play with a little bit of background into it. And when they get that kill, Cello starts to fall back as well. They have to rotate over, they have to watch everything, and now they're kind of trapped onto the bomb site here. But it's actually like a triple fake. All right. Make their way through window. I feel like this must have been a mid-round call based on some information they got. This does not look like an intentional play whatsoever. And it's not a bad mid-round call, but it doesn't put them in the greatest spot. It just guarantees them the plan. You know, if they went B, they would it feels like they would probably have a better chance to actually win the round. However, going A, you have an almost guaranteed plan. And what I mean by that is, you know, if they get in the B site there, they probably win it every time, but a large portion of the time they're not getting into the B site because they're going from long ranges, and they know that INTZ has at least 2 or 3 players there. I think they saw 2, and the third player is likely to be on a fairly quick rotate from middle. So they go for, you know, the kind of clever play heading back to A, but they don't have anything in A cleared, right? So by going back A in that situation, they're almost kind of saying, you know, we would rather the plant than win the round, because our chances of winning the round are very low either way. And now you've got Dream Eaters, 5 Deegs in hand. I mean, already. There's kind of 2 ideas when you have 5 Deegs in your hand, right? You either group up and try and force out of an area, kill someone and grab their gun and go from there, or you do what Dream Eaters is doing here. And this is something you usually do if you feel like you're more confident with your aim, either in terms of your actual ability to aim or in comparison to your opponents, right? If you feel like your aim is a little bit worse, maybe you group up a little bit more and you try and use those Deagles as a squad to try and find an entry and move on from there. However, when you feel like your aim is really good, you can use those Deags to try and find entries, and by finding those entries, they're drawing their opponents apart across the map. And that's why you saw they got the entry, they looked around, they continued to apply a little bit of pressure towards A, and then they boosted Speedak into window because they realized that that is a likely area for them to rotate off of, and that's exactly what they did. And, you know, they do find the frags with the Deagles in the meantime. However, if they didn't find those frags with the Deagles in the meantime, they would still be in a very good spot to win the round. Whereas, you know, otherwise, it would not be that great. So now into the 2v2 somehow. It was a 5v2 here. And it wasn't the biggest misplays by Dream Eaters. They were just kind of spread out and lost the gunfights. Yeah. Now Krad playing kind of the cold angle here. And Sviat just lands a Deeg shot. So not only did he land the Deeg shot, but he landed it onto the one player with full HP. So that was just aim, mostly, from Dream Eaters. But you can see the idea behind the round. You spread out a little bit, find the frags, and once you find the frags, you wait a little bit, you don't get over-aggressive, and then you find out where they rotated off, where they're weak, and you try and penetrate there. And that's exactly what they did. They boosted in a window, and again, they did find the kills in the meantime, but that boost in a window likely would have gotten them a kill if they hadn't found those kills in the meantime, you know? And now you've got Dream Eaters on guns, and INTZ is just on pistols. I mean, they're forced to really buy up here. Well, not in this case. They could have saved, but they're on a double save, so they'd be giving up match point. So they're kind of forced to save here to some extent. And Dream Eaters, knowing they have the gun advantage, is going to go quickly towards middle. Smoking in a window just deals with the potential of a scout, right? And then you've got INTZ. They've got the one AUG in hand, and they're trying to utilize that just to find some kills. So they're trying to kind of play a little, again, the same way Dream Eaters did it, or INTZ did it on the first half, actually. I thought it was Dream Eaters. The way INTZ did it on the first half, they're playing a little bit further back with these pistols, not doing anything crazy, and they're letting the AUG get a little bit of work done. They're letting that be kind of their point of contact, and they're giving him a chance to find frags. He needs to be a little bit aggressive, but he can be more passive than he otherwise would be if his teammates were being more aggressive. He doesn't need to rush. He just needs to try and find something if he can. Then Cello supports his teammate in middle, finds the frag. And this is actually a really good setup for INTZ if they don't get mollied out there. Somehow he finds the kill anyways. What? And the rotate in from Kanji, he only finds one. This is the opposite of staying alive, right? He found one and goes down, and now they've got a little bit more forward pressure. But really, this does end up being, you know, getting into this situation is really just based off aim here from INTZ, you know, or from Dream Eaters. And really, it's more based off INTZ kind of whiffing a lot of shots than anything else. Because they were in a 2v4, and they were in apartments, so there was not much forward pressure, right? Because they didn't make their way out because they didn't get the kills quite quickly enough, they felt like, to force forward. But still, I mean, there should be no way they win that, really. "4v2, you would think there was just about no way for them to win that round because they have no outward pressure, but they do have better guns, so at least you can respect that a little bit. It's just INTZ kind of gave them the angles to find the kills with the better guns, which they really should not have been doing to begin with, right? And now, because INTZ forced the buy up in the previous round, they're kind of forced to continue buying up from there on, because they're not gonna save one and buy next. It's just ridiculous. They have to force up like all the way to the end now. And INTZ, they're playing this one a little bit more aggressively, obviously, and Forrester could get caught off guard here. But I feel like this is kind of like the story of the game. Like, Forrester is watching two angles. INTZ is aggressive from both. And not only that, but Kanji finds generally the timing, and he just, you know, Forrester looks back at the exact right moment and lands the shot immediately. And this is kind of like how round number 3 from the first half for Dream Eaters looked, where they pushed into Palace and ramp, and they walked it directly into the angles INTZ was holding, but INTZ still lost the gun battles. And the interesting play actually here from INTZ is this re-aggression from Destiny, getting into Palace, because Dream Eaters might be thinking that because Destiny, or because Kanji had already died in Palace, that there's nobody else there, or there might not be anybody else there. And this is exactly kind of what Forrester is doing there, but that's the story of the game as well. Destiny literally looks around milliseconds before Forrester peeks out on him, and he just dies. I mean, he had the idea for the entirety of the round until that very moment, and then he looked away and died. And that is an unfortunate moment. So now Dream Eaters on match point. INTZ forced to continue buying up. They're completely on the back foot, and there's been some bad luck in this game as well, but they're also getting out-aimed. And not only that, but it's almost like they're in their own head. The way they've been playing some of these rounds seems super scared, like they're just sure they're not going to win the gunfights. It's like very, very scared gameplay. But this is a lot more confident than you've seen from them. I mean, Yell jumping out immediately, Kanji mollying window and then playing in window, and Yell just hard contesting this over and over. And even after he found the kill, wide swinging and going again. That's the confidence you really want to see from this team. Like, and they just have not shown the entirety of the game up until that very point. Yeah, I mean, that's what you wanted to see from them for a while. And, of course, landing the shots as well. I think Yell landed a headshot there. Kanji landed a headshot with the scout in hand. And this is actually super dangerous. Sviat finds the kill, and A is completely empty. They could just walk right in, and they'd win the round right now. Well, not win the round, but at the very least, they'd get the bomb plant. And the way this game has been going, you would very much expect Dream Eaters to win this one. But look at this play from Kanji. Again, this is confidence. So this is something maybe they're finally bringing out at 15-4, where not only do they have the 2v2, but he's walking through a smoke with the scout in hand in the 2v2 and lands 2 shots with it as well, That is incredible confidence. And now Kinky in the 1v2. This is actually kind of a one-way. When you jump up on the first box there, that's kind of a one-way. And Kinky just really doesn't have much of a chance there. Zan playing very aggressive, very confident. Kanji holding back a little bit. That's exactly what you'd expect, right? Kanji holds back a little bit because he's got less HP. He's not trying to be the one that could potentially get one-shotted. And the player with more HP can play more aggressive, get the information, and try and push him out into an awkward spot where Kanji can be holding the angle. So a lot of the time it makes more sense in that situation to be pushing with one and holding a little bit back with the other. Not playing, you know, fully passively, but just baiting a little bit. When you have low HP, sometimes baiting is the way to do it. Sometimes you can be the bait, but in situations where you're not looking for a trade, where you're in the, you know, the 2v1 there, you can play as the baiter a little bit if you're covering. Because Zan would force him out there because he had a perfect angle, and then Kanji would hold if Zan, you know, got hurt and they, you know, the player in sight was... does have merit to them in that situation. With the smoke down, it makes a lot more sense for Zan to be the one getting aggressive because he can play around the smoke, and when you play around a smoke with 22 HP, you have a tendency to win stupid prizes, which is death. And now INTZ isn't doing the same sort of Astralis smoke towards top mid, but Dream Eaters is sending 4 here. 4 is a lot. 4 is a large number of players to send towards middle this late into the round, and they don't receive any pressure. So they don't use too much utility to do it, but even without using too much utility, having 4 players in middle with 45 seconds left, there's not a ton of things you can do. You're basically forced to go A here because you have the only place where you have another player is Palace, and you're forced to do it through Con with 4 players, which can oftentimes get caught off guard. And yeah, it's exactly what Kanji's going to do there. Catches him off guard, finds 1, does a ton of damage, and you still have 2 in A. And Cello is showing himself here. He's baiting himself. You notice this Cello, he's making some noise, trying to get spotted. He's trying to get information, but he's trying to allow Destiny to get into a better spot to find a kill. And he actually doesn't find a kill there. That's pretty surprising. Pretty surprising. And then into the 1v or 2v2. The force through from Cello and Zan, you'll notice they forced through as the bomb was getting planted. That's another thing to notice there. They waited a little bit, but as soon as that bomb started getting planted, and the thing is, they knew that where the bomb planter was, right? So you always have an idea when that bomb is getting planted where that guy's going to be, so you know on a certain timeline where at least one of the players from your opponents are. And as well as that, they had some info on where the rest of the players were as well. So they were able to execute out quickly onto players where they kind of knew their location. But it's still a really ballsy play to force out that quickly. And in that situation when one of your players is on cat. And that's the type of plays that INTZ didn't seem to be making earlier on in the game. So it's almost like they've had a change of mentality to some extent. Maybe the YOLO plays. And there, Forrester kind of getting hit the same way that Dream Eaters was hitting INTZ earlier on, where Forrester, you didn't catch it, but Forrester was looking at the area. He was staring right at Destiny there, and Destiny just peeked into him and killed him anyways. And that's exactly what happened here as well. Fuck, I'm missing all the action, but that's exactly what happened here as well. Kinky was holding that angle, and Yell just walks into it with an op and finds the frag. So it's almost like the roles are entirely reversed. INTZ was losing every gunfight before, even the ones where they were completely set up, and now all of a sudden they're winning every gunfight, even the ones that Dream Eaters are completely set up for. And they're in such a good spot now. Destiny, I mean, I feel like there's a pretty good chance this is a read into Dream Eaters, that they only usually send 1A on their default, because otherwise walking into Palace with 3 HP is just a ridiculously ballsy play, to the point where unless there's some read that they only have 1A, that's almost like it's almost like intentionally throwing, even though it works out, because a lot of teams do like to run 2A nowadays, right? Especially, I mean, INTZ did it quite often, and if they're running 2A, he literally just walks into his death. Now all of a sudden it's in a 2v2. I mean, INTZ was in a great spot, but somehow the player in Palace didn't find a kill. Destiny didn't find a kill from Palace, probably partially because he has 3 HP. and Speedak into the 1v2 with the bomb planted. Speedak should know where both players are, I believe. He knows Yell was playing B, and Zand playing jungle, and he has an idea that the player B, a lot of the time in this situation, the B player is going to rotate back connector. Why is he going to rotate back connector? It's because if you rotate through CT, you're gifting to 1v1s, and it's also a longer rotate you have to run through. Looping up and connecting with his teammate there and coming through connector makes a ton of sense and gives you a little bit more playability into the 2v1 to try and double peek on your opponent. Speedak gave himself a good angle there, and he landed a shot that, you know, sometimes you don't really land. It can be a little bit tough from time to time, but he lands it. And then Zand, you know, Speedak kind of has to play for information after finding that kill, right? He has to try and find out where the second player is, because the second player could kind of be anywhere. And when he spots him out, he's just the guy's holding the angle and gets the kill. And now you've got a Palace pop from Dream Eaters. They are buying up, like fully buying up, so they're kind of making a bit of a YOLO play to try and catch INTZ off guard with the Palace pop. Not something that's going to work out all the time, but occasionally you can play against a team that's playing a little bit light towards A. And if INTZ was playing light towards A, if they didn't have nearly, you know, kind of two players deady A and one on a fast rotate, that can work very well. But it's a play, it's almost like they're already running into somewhat desperation plays. Like going for that on an almost full buy-up is a little bit weird. You would expect more towards the B rush plays, the like kind of the fast execute B rush. But if they didn't have a spawn for that, based on their buy up, they might not have had a lot of options to go for there, because they had a Mac 10, they had, I believe, some other SMG as well, and 2 rifles, 2 AKs, and a Galil, something like that. When your buy up's really low, you're kind of pigeonholed into doing kind of plays like that where you're trying to catch them off guard. However, it's, I don't know. I don't think that works out all that often unless they have some idea that INTZ is soloing A. But all INTZ has shown them this half is doubling up in A. And Dream Eaters has not given them any pressure towards middle to make them more likely to be doubling up middle. So it's a little bit odd. But now they're on to pistols, and they're in the same situation INTZ was in, where they could be buying up here and trying to force. But at some point you have to realize that forcing with no utility, even if you get full rifles, is not generally a winning play all that often. And this is what it more often looks like, this double up towards A. You know, if Kinky had an AK or if he had an op here, that player in CT would probably die. And Cello playing super passive because he knows you can't solo A if 2 players are working both sides of A against you. So this is kind of how it looks. If he played any more aggressive here, he could easily be caught off guard. He could easily get caught out by these 2 players on the T side. And actually, Kinky's made his way into a very good spot. Cello gives him, to some extent, the angle because he walks into the angle. He doesn't run into it. He doesn't crouch peek. He walks into it, but not able to land the shot. So Cello finds the kill. And now all of a sudden you're in a 3v5. And they actually have decent positioning to some extent, but it's hard to force players off. And you can see Krad has a very good idea that KNG is going to be right there. But because of that, you know, Yell comes out and flanks, and the round's over pretty quickly. So INTZ is, to some extent, just winning the gunfights now. Dream Eaters are already starting to play scared, which is weird because we're only, you know, 5 or 6 rounds into a comeback here, right? Yeah, 5 rounds into a comeback, and they're already starting to play a little bit scared, which is not a good sign for rounds to come. So now Dream Eaters, again, throwing the top mid smoke. They've been pretty much throwing it every round. And KNG, I mean, this is the confidence, again, that we weren't seeing earlier on. Just peeking out through the smoke, bottom mid. I mean, it's not an insanely confident play, but there's definitely confidence involved. And he's confident he's going to land the shot. Because if you miss the shot there, pretty good chance you die. and confidence from Yell as well, walking through the B smoke to peek out towards Apps. And Dream Eaters is the ones playing scared now. You know, they're playing pretty far back. They're not playing a balanced approach. And when you're not playing a balanced approach where you're playing, you know, one holding B, one holding A, when you're going for a default, this is the type of thing that can happen. And Destiny walks up middle. Alrighty. And Crad gets timing. That's just complete timing. Kinky's going to be able to trade it back. But the execute is already kind of thrown off here from Dream Eaters to some extent. And Cello threw his... This is clever. Cello threw his own smoke in the middle of site. I think it must have been his smoke, and played behind it. Created a lot of space and puts Dream Eaters in an awkward spot. That's a smoke I've seen thrown a few times. It allows you to get out to triple for free. It allows you to play around in the bomb site without being worried about getting shot from both angles at the same time. So I actually love it as a play. I'm guessing Cello threw that. It's possible that Dream Eaters threw that, but if they threw that, that's just a very weird way to go about your A execute given the situation they were in. Very weird way to play it. I think it's very likely that Cello threw that. And if he did, it's just a very smart play. And now Dream Eaters, they're forced to plant, but they actually just have to hope there. Like, it might seem on the surface kind of like a bad play that Speedak wasn't holding the CT there, but that's actually a moment where they absolutely have to gamble. They have no choice, because if Speedak peeks out from Palace, first of all, there's a decent chance the guy is holding that angle, because I think you can be holding that angle, right, from an angle where they don't see you from sight, from default. So we could be holding that angle, but also it's possible that another angle is being held, waiting for him to come out, something like, I don't know, something like that or something. And it's more likely that well, it's not more likely, but it's equally likely that they're doubling jungle, and as soon as the bomb starts getting planted, they start to peek around, or, you know, even if they're soloing jungle, they start to peek around, so he can't really risk peeking towards CT. They're basically saying in that situation that, you know, it's a possibility that you're in CT. We're hoping that you're doubling jungle, and we're going to be able to get the bomb plant, but if you are in CT, we basically concede that we will just lose the round. And that's just kind of a reality of it sometimes. And that's not really a misplay, because either peeking into CT or continuing to hold jungle is a luck-based, you know, kind of a gamble. Either one is a gamble, you know? They just chose the wrong gamble that time. And now you've got INTZ with the double op. And you can see this is what it kind of looks like, even with the bomb plant. No, there was no bomb plant there. Okay, never mind. But, I mean, the utility is very low for Dream Eaters here, right? This is kind of what happens when you go for the buy-up back to back to back to back. And that's not even a full buy-up, because they had like $700 on each member at the beginning of the previous round, or before the end of the round. So they had more than the base amount, and still even more than the base amount is not a full buy-up. And the 3 through underpass, this is a play based on the fact that they know INTZ is playing pretty heavily towards A, so they're hoping to catch them off, but it's still one of those plays that's kind of desperation to some extent. And they actually have the right play, because these players are trapped ramp, but they just find the kill. I mean, Destiny just finds the frag. Sviat walks into the angle trying to contest with the op in hand. Destiny just finds it. So, I mean, Dream Eaters kind of had the right idea to some extent. You can see they're like strategically they're getting a little bit desperate. They're not just running standard plays, they're doing all these weird plays. They're not running off of mid control because they're kind of getting shut down aim wise, and it's just so weird that they were doing so well aim wise and then just getting wrecked aim wise. And not only that, but it's like at the doorman for T side is saying, by the way, like, you have to play scared when you enter this side, like, no confidence allowed, and definitely you're not allowed to aim well either. Because both teams look virtually identical on their T sides. Just kind of the way their players are playing individually. Now Destiny is actually trapped in here. In connector, dies, but Yell lands the shot. So they're doubling up in connector, and that's kind of just like... INTZ is almost kind of outstratting them pretty hard here, actually, because... they're doubling connector the one time they try and run into connector there. And, you know, if there's one player in connector, he just dies instantly. If there's nobody in connector, they just take control. But 2 players connector, I mean, Yell does have to land the shot there, and it's not the easiest shot of all time, but still, they're in a pretty good spot to actually deal with that play. And now actually you've got kind of an interesting play here from INTZ as well, essentially soloing B. Basically saying if they come B, KNG should be able to land at least one shot, and we're somewhat comfortable that you could get the bomb plant. But they want to, you know, they want to make sure that they can win the round if they go to the other side or they do anything crazy. And actually, somehow, I mean, that should never be allowed. He should never be able to get that kill. The bomb plant is somewhat accepted as a possibility by INTZ. When they play that setup, they're still hoping to be able to stop the bomb plant, but it's accepted as a possibility. But SpeedAx should never be able to find the kill there. That's actually kind of insane. And now Dream Eaters should be starting to get scared. You know, around 15-11-ish is where you start to think to yourself that your opponents are actually making their way back into this game, and you're starting to get a little bit scared. So they should be getting a little bit worried here. Fast towards connector. They're really trying to force this connector control, and it's not working for them very well at all. And you actually saw Destiny get boosted into ladder here, so they've done this same ladder boost that INTZ did as well, which is interesting that they're both running the same exact play. And the support there from Zand is just huge. And not only that, but he gets back in time. They're not able to prevent him from getting into the corner. That's not good. He's able to fully reposition, survive. He's got 3. He never should have been allowed to reposition. And not only that, but he takes Kinky down to 10 health. I mean, yeah. All right. And now they're stuck in a really bad spot because INTZ is allowed to get on a market, and they have no control of the site here. Kinky and SpeedAx have no control of the site. They're terrified to peek any of these angles. They're so scared right now. And you know, Kinky just walks into that. They're so scared of the guy back left pillar that they walk into the guy holding catwalk. And now SpeedAx, he's so scared of the guy cat that he's just going to get killed by the guy back pillar, which apparently they already knew was there, or at least they had a very good idea he was there. But he was just terrified of the other player. But yeah, I mean, Zand supporting his teammate towards cat there is really what makes the difference. He finds the kill on the guy connector and the guy cat, but he should never... The timing shouldn't allow him to reposition there. Dream Eaters was just a little bit slow, which allowed him to reposition out of catwalk into get right. And you got to give props to Zand for immediately starting to reposition. But at the same time, you know, it can be a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B some of the time, right? And now Dream Eater's trying to force quickly into connector. This is something you actually see quite often, which is somewhat hard to deal with some of the time when you have a solo opera towards middle, because when that smoke goes down, you have to be worried about the side peek from it, but they jump through it, right? So it gives Fiat the kill. Still doubled on A for INTZ. And Cello probably going to try and bait for Destiny again, playing towards Ticket here, trying to help him make sure that nobody from Palace can kill him. He gets the kill, and now, yeah, Destiny gets the free kill because his teammate baited for him. So that's exactly what's supposed to happen in that situation. So INTZ is given the advantage, and not only that, but Destiny able to smoke himself off and get out of Firebox, which is just a super smart play. As soon as he grabs that kill, he smokes it off so he can reposition and he's not trapped. And by doing so, he gives himself a lot of space to work with. He does end up dying, but he gives his teammate space to work with as well because he's not too worried about that exact angle, and that's exactly how that works out. So, works perfectly. I mean, very smart individual plays coming here out of INTZ. I think strategically, Dream Eaters is a little bit off the mark. It seems like they've almost never run a standard mid default. They only ran it like maybe the first 2 rounds, and INTZ isn't heavily pressuring middle the majority of the time. They're just rotating between a couple of different setups, and you know, they've had the timing correct on the way they're rotating between the setups as well, so you can't take that away from them. They're also landing their shots, of course, and Dream Eaters is playing scared. They're only running somewhat set ideas. They're not just running defaults, and I mean, they're not landing their shots, right? So if you can't land your shots, at some point you have to realize that a default isn't going to work, because defaults are oftentimes based on your ability to land your shots, so it makes some sense. And Yell sees Forrester there. This is something else. So Yell gonna get completely trapped here. They know he's there, but Zan just jumps up and finds the spray down. Okay. Zan finds the perfect timing there. I mean, if he's a second later, he dies anyways. If he's a second later, he dies anyways. But he's just on time to find that. Just on time. That leaves Forrester into the 1v3. And he backed up. He could go A here, but he doesn't really know it. And INTZ is right to walk into B site and full clear it, right? They want to walk into B site there and full clear it, and then figure out he's A. So he tries to come back out B, but he just doesn't find the right timing, right? So in overtime, Dream Eaters literally did not win a T-side gun round. And they're still on the T side. Maybe, I feel like the team on the opposite side from where they got wrecked has a little bit of an advantage when this comes through, because your opponents are kind of reset mentally from the situation they were in. But INTZ did win 3 gun rounds. They won round 3, 5, and 7 or something like that. But they were all gun rounds, which means INTZ should, in theory, have a huge advantage into this, because Dream Eaters did not win a single gun round. And again, quick connector. I cannot believe they did not go through that smoke as soon as that molly got thrown. If they were a couple seconds earlier, they... But I mean, they heard the guy throwing the molly. I'm surprised with how fast they were trying to get into connector. A little bit delayed on how fast they threw that flash. You would expect the flash to be earlier based on how quickly they got to close connector, but it's super delayed. Maybe intentionally, maybe not. And that means they can't catch the guy in connector off guard. It's just telegraphed because they ran all the way down. He heard them, he mollied it, and then he backed up. And then it was flashed. And now they want to try and execute on these B players, but Zan sees them. Oh, that was a lazy jump. That's about the laziest jump I've seen. And that's definitely a jump that can get him killed. I mean, it's not stupidly lazy, but it is a little bit lazy. It's a jump that can get him killed. It would just have to be a nice shot. And Dream Eater's going to actually make their way back over to A. Wow. That's actually the quick rotate back over to A. That's clever. Just trying to outstrat INTZ. And it's kind of working. KNG stays alive, but he's completely trapped in the bomb site, and he's got no support. Even getting 1 kill in that situation is not what you often see. And Crad, a little bit over aggressive there, gets taken down. Speed act, we've seen this before. But this time around, he pushes jungle. He pushes away from where the bomb is planted, actually, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But it's risky, right? It's pretty risky to push away from where the bomb is planted for, because unless you find that first kill, you're putting yourself in a really awkward spot trying to play the 1v2 without control of the bomb. But it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, because he does just go down. I think he's just worried there that the player in jungle is going to come through as he's holding the angle on the guy's CT. But at the same time, I mean, he's probably... I don't know. It's hard to say he's in a worse spot to play against that guy's CT. But the problem is, if he holds the angle against the guy's CT and they're both CT, even if he hits the first shot, the second guy will swing on him. So he either has to play as if they're both CT and he plays as if there's nobody jungle, in which case if there is a guy jungle, he automatically dies. Or he plays as if there's... he plays a little bit differently like he did there to try and catch them. Now they're just rushing up Cat, and Yell, again, this is such a bad spot for an op. Both teams have played the same spot. It's not intentional. It's the only place he can fall back to in that situation, right? It's not on him that it's like, he's putting himself in a bad spot. It's on the fact that it's a terrible spot and he's still able to find 2 kills. You're supposed to be able to trade on that guy. Like, he has nowhere else to fall to because he's trying to go aggressive on Cat, right? But you never ever want to have to fall there as an opper when you're trying to go aggressive Cat. That's like almost the nightmare scenario. It's really easy for people to try and jiggle out and draw a shot out from you. It's really easy for them to double peek you, jump around the corner, all this shit, and you have to hit nice shots because it's close enough range that them jumping around the corner is really, really, really awkward to deal with. But he's still able to do it. He hits the shots and he gets 2 kills. And in that situation, if he doesn't get a kill and he dies, it's a very good chance for Dream Eaters to actually win the round. But instead, he finds 2 kills and they win it. So they actually found a play that almost kind of worked for them there. That fast Cat, I mean, that's completely individual from Yell to land those shots. If he doesn't land those, he wouldn't be blamed for not landing those, right? It wouldn't be because he's bad. It would be just, you know, it's a tough spot to be in. And he found the 2 kills from a, you know, strategically. Sometimes you need the ability to recognize when something worked strategically and when it worked individually, right? And that's a situation where it seems to have worked strategically but not individually. And actually, Yell, it's like they're gifting him the kills here. They're not clearing out the angle where he already took a shot from. And that's some confidence there to go into the smoke and find the frag. Yeah. Then Zand up Cat. Alone on B, still peeks up Cat. I mean, that's a bit of confidence there as well. Again, like, B is kind of a spot where it often gets abandoned in these types of situations. A lot of teams are favoring abandoning B apps for a decent portion of the round, especially when you go down a man, because the odds of them hitting B unless they're rushing it are somewhat low. Like, walking out B in the, like, at 125 is very rare. Well, not very rare, but a lot of the times it's pretty rare. If they're already putting pressure in middle, a lot of the times there's nothing going on, and walking through the smoke especially. So it's become pretty common for teams to smoke B and then kind of abandon it at some portion of the time to do something like a double on Cat or to do something like aggression towards middle, things like that. And that's why Zan did that, and that's not super uncommon. Getting aggressive on Cat alone when you do that is a little bit less common. And Forrester actually walked up Cat, and Zand finding 1 kill there is actually pretty massive into their ability to win the round. If Forrester had found that kill earlier, this round would be clearly Dream Eaters. Kanji with the Teague, 1 Deeg, and now Kinky alone. He finds 1. Wow. I mean, not much you can say about that. That's exactly what you were expecting. First half, Dream Eaters was doing that to INTZ. Second half, and OT apparently, INTZ is doing that to Dream Eaters, which is actually insane. He just, Deeg in hand, walked through the smoke and found the kill. I thought he might try and 1D, like, because sometimes you can try and do some crazy shit, right, where you one-way over the garbage can right here. It's not letting me move my cursor over the garbage can right here, right? However, he actually just walked through it and found the kill. Okay, so like I said, I think the team that INTZ had a huge advantage going into the overtime, not only because they won gun rounds and Dream Eaters did not, but also because now Dream Eaters is moving back into a half with no momentum, by the way, absolutely no momentum, and a half where, you know, they have to find their footing, find their feet beneath them yet again, you know, which is kind of awkward because they're not used to the pacing on CT side nearly as much. Yeah. So again, they're going to be doubling A, which is pretty standard for them. And the play out through Palace, trying to catch them off guard from INTZ. It works pretty well. Krad is putting himself in a pretty awkward situation there. The player in Palace could potentially have peeked out on him and just taking him down. But Zand was too worried about the player in connector or like jungle or something. If he had peeked out Palace at any point there, he would have found the kill. But instead, his teammates died because he was a little bit too scared for good or for bad. And now Forrester in the 1v2, they kind of let him. Well, the thing about a 1v2 in this type of situation is you just have to catch your opponents off guard. And luckily for him, they they don't have any idea where he is, and they found the timing to get past the angle KNG was at, which means they're super worried about every angle he could be. And realistically, from this position, he should be able to get a free entry. Like, he'll get a free entry. Now Zan knows where he is, and he tries to reposition, but Zan takes him down anyways. So, you know, when you're in that 2v1 in that type of situation, a lot of the time what happens is you catch the free kill on the first player, and it's a question of how far away the second player is before or as you kill the first player. Because if he's really close, then the second player is going to be able to get the trade immediately. But if he's a little too far away, you can reposition, you can actually catch him off guard, because if they're just a little bit too far away, for example, if he's a few steps back and I believe it's Crad there, gets the kill and then instantly repositions to default boxes, the guy in Palace will actually think he's still firebox, peek out there, and die to the player at default. So like seconds really matter in that. But that's an interesting game. I mean, Dream Eaters went 11 rounds in regulation, so they went 15 rounds. They lost 15 rounds in a row, where, by the way, the majority of them were gun rounds. And they lost all of them in a row. That is actually legendarily bad. Legendarily bad. Legendarily bad. But it was almost like when they switched sides, they switched skills. Like, it was like Global Elites versus Novas, and then Global Elites versus Novas in the other direction. It was actually insane. But anyways, I'm going to be going through a few different teams, a few different games, to get an idea what these teams are looking like heading into the major qualifier here, and get an idea of their play styles and stuff. So this is just one of many. But both of these teams are headed into the major qualifier, the major play-in, or whatever you want to call it. So we'll see what happens there. And you know, if you've listened this far in the video, all right, if you listen this far in the video, maybe you want to go subscribe to my Patreon. You know, I've got no subscribers. I don't know. I just put it up randomly. You know, listen, we'll make this a thing. All right, subscribe to my Twitch, and I'll do a demo review for you. There you go. Bam. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helped.